Chapter 10. A raft of moonbeams, a ghostly torchlight, like fires in black and white films. Stars, a few fine filaments of mist. I leaned upon the rail, and I looked across the world. Utter silence held the night, the dream-drenched city, the entire universe from here. Distant things, the sea, Amber, Arden, Garnath, the lighthouse of Cabra, the grove of the unicorn, my tomb atop Colvir. Silent, far below, yet clear, distinct. A god's eye view, I'd say. Or that of a soul cut loose and drifting high, in the middle of the night. I had come to the place where the ghosts play at being ghosts, where the omens, portents, signs, and animate desires thread the nightly avenues and palace high halls of amber in the sky. Tirnanoth. Turning my back to the rail and Dayworld's vestiges below, I regarded the avenues and dark terraces, the halls of the lords, the quarters of the low. The moonlight is intense in Tirnanoth. Silvers over the facing sides of our imagined places. Stick in hand, I passed forward, and the strangelings moved about me, appeared at windows, on balconies, on benches, at gates. Unseen I passed, for truly put, in this place I was a ghost to whatever their substance. Silence in silver, only the tapping of my stick, and that mostly muted. More mists adrift toward the heart of things, the palace a white bonfire of it. Dew, like drops of mercury on the finely sanded petals and stems in the gardens by the walks. The passing moon as painful to the eye as the sun at midday. The stars outshone, dimmed by it. Silver in silence, the shine. I had not planned on coming, for its omens, if that they truly be, are deceitful. Its similarities to the lives and places below unsettling, its spectacle often disconcerting. Still, I had come, a part of my bargain with time. After I had left Brand to continue his recovery in the keeping of Gerard, I had realized that I required additional rest myself, and sought to obtain it without betraying my disability. Fiona was indeed flown, and neither she nor Julian could be reached by means of the trumps. Had I told Benedict and Gerard what Brand had told me, I was certain that they would have insisted we begin efforts at tracking her down, at tracking both of them. I was equally certain that such efforts would prove useless. I had sent for Random and Ganelon and retired to my quarters, giving out that I intended to pass the day in rest and quiet thought in anticipation of spending the night in Tirnanoth. Reasonable behavior for any Amberite with a serious problem. I did not put much stock in the practice, but most of the others did. As it was the perfect time for me to be about such a thing, I felt that it would make my day's retirement believable. Of course, this obliged me to follow through on it that night, but this too was good. It gave me a day, a night, and part of the following day in which to heal sufficiently to carry my wound that much the better. I felt that it would be time well spent. You've got to tell someone, though. I told Random and I told Ganelon. Propped in my bed, I told them of the plans of Brand, Fiona, and Blaze, and of the Eric Julian Kane cabal. I told them what Brand had said concerning my return and his own imprisonment by his fellow conspirators. They saw why the survivors of both factions, Fiona and Julian, had run off. Doubtless to marshal their forces, hopefully to expend them on one another, but probably not. Not immediately, anyhow. More likely, one or the other would move to take Amber first. They will just have to take numbers and wait their turns like everyone else, Random had said. Not exactly, I remembered saying. Fiona's allies and the things that have been coming in on the Black Road are the same guys. And the circle in Lorraine? Ganelon had asked. The same. That was how it manifested itself in that shadow. They came a great distance. Ubiquitous bastards, Random had said. Nodding, I had tried to explain. And so I came to Tiernan-Noth. When the moon rose and the apparition of amber came faintly into the heavens, stars showing through it, pale halo about its towers, tiny flecks of movement upon its walls, I waited with Ganelon and Random, waited on the highest crop of Colvir. There where the three steps are fashioned roughly out of stone. When the moonlight touched them, the outline of the entire stairway began to take shape. Spanning the great gulf to that point above the sea, the Vision City held. When the moonlight fell full upon it, the stair had taken as much of substance as it would ever possess, and I set my foot on the stone. Random held a full deck of trumps, and I had mine within my jacket. Gwaithswandir, forged upon this very stone by moonlight, held power in the city and the sky, and so I bore my blade along. I had rested all day, and I held a staff to lean upon. Illusion of distance and time. The stairs through the Corwin-ignoring sky escalate somehow, for it is not a simple arithmetic progression up them once motion has commenced. I was here, I was there. I was a quarter of the way up before my shoulder had forgotten the clasp of Ganelon's hand. If I looked too hard at any portion of the stair, it lost its shimmering opacity, and I saw the ocean far below as through a translucent lens. I lost track of time, though it seems it's never long afterward. As far beneath the waves as I'd soon be above them, off to my right, glittering and curling, the outline of Rebma appeared within the sea. I thought of Moira, wondered how she fared. What would become of our deep-water double should Amber ever fall? Will the image remain unshattered in its mirror? Or would building blocks and bones be taken and shaken alike? Dice in the deep-water casino canyons our fleets fly over. No answer in the man-drowning, Corwin-confounding waters, though I felt a twinge in my side. At the head of the stair I entered, coming into the ghost city as one would enter Amber after mounting the great forestair up Colvir's seaward face. I leaned upon the rail, looked across the world. The black road led off to the south. I could not see it by night. Not that it mattered. I knew now where it led. Or rather, where Brand said that it led. As he appeared to used up a life's worth of reasons for lying, I believed that I knew where it led. All the way. From the brightness of amber and the power and the clean shining splendor of adjacent shadow, off through the progressively darkening slices of image that led away from in any direction, farther through the twisted landscapes, and farther still on through places seen only when drunk, delirious, or dreamingly ill, and farther yet again, running beyond the place where I stop. How to put simply that which is not a simple thing? Solipsism, I suppose, is where we have to begin. The notion that nothing exists but the self, or, at least, that we cannot truly be aware of anything but our own existence and experience. I can find somewhere, off in shadow, anything I can visualize. Any of us can. This, in good faith, does not transcend the limits of the ego. It may be argued, and in fact has by most of us, that we create the shadows we visit out of the stuff of our own psyches, that we alone truly exist, that the shadows we traverse are but projections of our own desires. Whatever the merits of this argument, and there are several, it does go far toward explaining much of the family's attitude toward people, places, and things outside of Amber. Namely, we are toy makers, and they are playthings. Sometimes dangerously animated, to be sure, but this too is part of the game. We are impresarios by temperament, and we treat one another accordingly. While solipsism does tend to leave one slightly embarrassed on questions of ideology, one can easily avoid the embarrassment by refusing to admit the validity of the questions. Most of us are, as I have often observed, almost entirely pragmatic in the conduct of our affairs. Almost. Yet there is a disturbing element in the picture. There is a place where the shadows go mad, where you purposely push yourself through layer after layer of shadow, surrendering, again purposely, a piece of your understanding every step of the way. You come at last to a mad place beyond which you cannot go. Why do this? In the hope of an insight, I'd say, or a new game. But when you come to this place, as we all have, you realize that you have reached the limit of shadow or the end of yourself. Synonymous terms, we had always thought. Now, though, now I know that it is not so. Now, as I stand, waiting without the courts of chaos, telling you what it was like, I know now that it is not so. But I knew well enough then, that night in Ternanoth, had known earlier, when I had fought the Goatman in the Black Circle of Lorraine, had known the day in the lighthouse of Cabra, after my escape from the dungeons of Amber, when I had looked upon the ruined Garnath. I knew that that was not all that there was to it. I knew because I knew that the Black Road ran beyond that point. It passed through madness, into chaos, and kept going. The things that traveled across it came from somewhere, but they were not my things. I had somehow helped to grant them this passage, but they did not spring from my version of reality. They were their own, or someone else's, small matter there, and they tore holes in that small metaphysic we had woven over the ages. They had entered our preserve. They were not of it. They threatened it. They threatened us. Fiona and Brand had reached beyond everything and found something, where none of the rest of us had believed anything to exist. The danger released was, on some level, almost worth the evidence obtained. We were not alone, nor were the shadows truly our toys. Whatever our relationship with shadow, I could never more regard it in that old light. All because the Black Road headed south and ran beyond the end of the world, where I stop. Silence and silver. Walking away from the rail, leaning on my stick, passing through the fog-spun, mist-woven, moonlight-brushed fabric of vision within the troubling city. Ghosts. Shadows of shadows. Images of probability. Might-be's and might-have-beens. Probability lost. Probability regained. Walking across the promenade now, figures, faces, many of them familiar. What are they about? Hard to say. Some lips move, some faces show animation. There are no words there for me. I pass among them, unnoted. There, one such figure, alone but waiting, fingers unknotting minutes, casting them away. Face averted, and I wish to see it. A sign that I will or should. She sits on a stone bench beneath a gnarly tree. She gazes in the direction of the palace. Her form is quite familiar. Approaching, I see that it is Lorraine. She continues to regard a point far beyond me, does not hear me say that I have avenged her death. But mine is the power to be heard here. It hangs in the sheath at my side. Drawing great grace, one dear, I raise my blade overhead where the moonlight tricks its patterns into a kind of motion. I place it on the ground between us. Corwin! Her head snaps back. Her hair rusts in the moonlight. Her eyes focus. Where did you come from? You're early. You wait for me? Of course. You told me to. How did you come to this place? This bench? No, this city. Amber, I do not understand. You brought me yourself. Are you happy here? You know that I am, so long as I am with you. I had not forgotten the evenness of her teeth, the hint of freckles beneath the soft light's veil. What happened? It is very important. Pretend for a moment that I do not know, and tell me everything that happened to us after the Battle of the Black Circle in the rain. She frowned. She stood. She turned away. "We had that argument," she said. "You followed me, drove away Melkin, and we talked. I saw that I was wrong, and I went with you to Avalon. There your brother Benedict persuaded you to talk with Eric. You were not reconciled, but you agreed to a truce because of something that he told you. He swore not to harm you, and you swore to defend Amber, with Benedict to witness both oaths. We remained in Avalon while you obtained chemicals, and we went to another place later, a place where you purchased strange weapons. We won the battle, but Eric lies wounded now." She stood and faced me. "Are you thinking of ending the truce? Is that it, Corwin?" I shook my head, and though I knew better, I reached to embrace her. I wanted to hold her, despite the fact that one of us did not exist, could not exist. When that tiny gap of space between our skins was crossed, to tell her that whatever had happened or would happen. The shock was not severe, but it caused me to stumble. I lay across Grace Wandir. My staff had fallen to the grass several paces away. Rising to my knees, I saw that the color had gone out of her face, her eyes, her hair. Her mouth shaped ghostwards as her head turned, searching. Sheathing Grace Wandir, recovering my staff, I rose once again. Her seeing passed through me in focus. Her face grew smooth. She smiled, started forward. I moved aside and turned, watching her run toward the man who approached, seeing her clasped in his arms, glimpsing his face as he bent it toward her own. Lucky ghost. Silver rose at the throat of his garment, kissing her. This man I would never know. Silver on silence, and silver. Walking away, not looking back, crossing the promenade. The voice of Random. "Corwin, are you all right?" "Yes." "Anything interesting happening?" "Later, Random." "Sorry." And sudden, the gleaming stare before the palace grounds. Up it, and to turn to the right, slow and easy now, into the garden. Ghost flowers throb on their stalks all about me. Ghost shrubs spill blossoms like frozen fireworks displays. Sans colors all. Only the essentials sketched in, degrees of luminosity, and silver the terms of their claim on the eye. Only the essentials here. In Tyrannanoth, a special sphere of shadow in the real world, swayed by the promptings of the id, a full-sized projective test in the sky, perhaps even a therapeutic device. Despite the silver, I'd say, if this is a piece of the soul, the night is very dark and silent. Walking, by fountains, benches, groves, cunning alcoves and mazes of hedging, passing along the walks, up an occasional step, across small bridges, moving past ponds among trees, by an odd piece of statuary, a boulder, a sundial, moondial here, bearing to my right, pressing steadily ahead, rounding, after a time, the northern end of the palace, swinging left then, past a courtyard overhung with balconies, more ghosts here and there upon them, behind them, within, circling around to the rear just to see the back gardens this way again, for they are lovely by normal moonlight in the true amber. A few more figures, talking, standing. No motion but my own is apparent. And feel myself drawn to the right. As one should never turn down a free oracle, I go. Toward a mass of high hedging, a small open area within. If it is not overgrown, a small open area within, if it is not overgrown. Long ago there was two figures embracing within. They part as I begin to turn away. None of my affair, but Deirdre. One of them is Deirdre. I know who the man will be before he turns. It is a cruel joke by whatever powers rule that silver, that silence. Back, back, away from that hedge, turning, stumbling, rising again, going away now, quickly. The voice of Random. Corwin, are you all right? Later, damn it, later. It is not too long till sunrise, Corwin. I felt I'd better remind you. Consider me reminded. Away now, quickly. Time, too, is a dream in Tirnanoth. Small comfort, but better than none. Quickly now, away, going again. Toward the palace. Bright architecture of the mind or spirit. More clearly standing now than the real ever did. To judge perfection is to render a worthless verdict. But I must see what lies within. This must be an end of sorts, for I am driven. I had not paused to recover my staff from where it had fallen this time among the sparkling grasses. I know where I must go, what I must do. Obvious now, though the logic which has seized me is not that of the waking mind. Hurrying, climbing up to the rearward portal, the side-biting soreness comes home again, across the threshold, into an absence of starshine and moonlight. The illumination is without direction, seeming almost to drift into pool aimlessly. Wherever it misses, the shadows are absolute, occulting large sections of the room. Hallway, closet, and stair. Among them, through them, almost running now, monochrome of my home, apprehension overtakes me. The black spots seem like holes in this piece of reality now, and I fear to pass too near. Fall in and be lost. Turning, crossing, finally, entering the throne room. Bushels of blackness stacked where my eyes would drive down lines of seeing to the throne itself. There, though, is movement. A drifting to my right as I advance. A lifting with the drifting. The boots on feet on legs come into view as forward pressing I near the place's base. Grey Swandeer comes into my hand, finding its way into a patch of light. Renewing its eye-tricking, shape-shifting stretch, acquiring a glow of its own. I place my left foot on the step, rest my left hand on my knee. Distracting but bearable, the throb of my healing gut. I wait for the blackness, the emptiness to be drawn, opposite curtain for the theatrics with which I am about to be burdened this night. And it slides aside, revealing a hand, an arm, a shoulder. The arm a glinting metallic thing, its planes like the facets of a gem. Its wrists and elbow wondrous weaves of silver cable, pinned with flecks of fire. The hand stylized, skeletal, a Swiss toy, mechanical insect, functional, deadly, beautiful in a way. And it slides aside, revealing the rest of the man. Benedict stands relaxed beside the throne, his left and human hand laid lightly upon it. He leans toward the throne, his lips are moving, and it slides aside, revealing the throne's occupant. Dara! Turned toward her right, she smiles. She nods to Benedict, and her lips move. I advance and extend Grey Swandeer till its point rests lightly in the concavity beneath her sternum. Slowly, quite slowly, she turns her head and meets my eyes. She takes on color and life. Her lips move again, and this time her words reach me. "What are you?" "No, that is my question. You answer it. Now." "I am Dara. Dara of Amber, Queen Dara. I hold this throne by right of blood and conquest. Who are you?" "Corwin, also of Amber. Don't move. I did not ask who you are." "Corwin is dead these many centuries. I have seen his tomb." "Empty." "Not so. His body lies within." "Give me your lineage." Her eyes move to her right, where the shade of Benedict still stands. A blade has appeared in his new hand, seeming almost an extension of it, but he holds it loosely, casually. His left hand now rests on her arm. Her eyes seek me in back of Grayswandir's hilt. Failing, they go again to that which is visible, Grayswandir, recognizing its design. I am the great-granddaughter of Benedict and the helmate Lintra, whom he loved and later slew. Benedict winces at this, but she continues. I never knew her. My mother and my mother's mother were born in a place where time does not run as an amber. I'm the first of my mother's line to bear all the marks of humanity. And you, Lord Corwin, are but a ghost from a long-dead past, albeit a dangerous shade. How you come here I do not know, but it was wrong of you. Return to your grave, trouble not the living. My hand wavers. Grayswandir strays no more than half an inch, yet that is sufficient. Benedict's thrust is below my threshold of perception. His new arm drives the new hand that holds the blade that strikes Grayswandir, as his old arm draws his old hand, which has seized upon Dara, back across the arm of the throne. This subliminal impression reaches me moments later, as I fall back, cutting air, recover, and strike an on guard, reflexively. It is ridiculous for a pair of ghosts to fight. Here it is uneven. He cannot even reach me, whereas Grayswandir... But no. His blade changes hands as he releases Dara and pivots, bringing them together, old hand and new. His left wrist rotates as he slides it forward and down, moving into what would be a core, where we two fighting mortal bodies. For a moment our guards are locked. That moment is enough. That gleaming, mechanical hand comes forward, a thing of moonlight and fire, blackness and smoothness. All angles, no curves. Fingers slightly flexed, palms silver-scribbled with a half-familiar design, comes forward and catches my throat. Catches at my throat, sorry. Missing, the fingers catch my shoulder and the thumb goes hooking. Whether for clavicle or larynx, I do not know. I throw one punch with my left, toward his midsection, and there is nothing there. The voice of Random. Corwin, the sun is about to rise. You've got to come down, now. I cannot even answer. A second or two and that hand would tear away whatever it held. That hand, Grayswandir and that hand, which strangely resembles it, are the only two things that seem to coexist in my world in the city of ghosts. I see it, Corwin. Pull away and reach for me, the trump. I spin Grayswandir out of the mind and bring it around and down in a long slashing arc. Only a ghost could have beat Benedict, or Benedict's ghost, with that maneuver. We stand too close for him to block my blade, but his countercut, perfectly placed, would have removed my arm, had there been an arm there to meet it. As there is not, I complete the stroke, delivering the blow with the full force of my right arm. High upon that lethal device of moonlight and fire, blackness and smoothness, near to the point where it is joined with him. With an evil tearing at my shoulder, the arm comes away from Benedict and grows still. We both fall. Get up! By the unicorn, Corwin, get up! The sun is rising! The city will come apart beneath you! The floor beneath me wavers to and from a misty transparency. I glimpse the light-scaled expanse of water. I roll to my feet, barely avoiding the ghost's rush to clutch at the arm he had lost. It clings like a dead parasite, and my side is hurting again. Suddenly, I am heavy, and the vision of ocean does not fade. I begin to sink through the floor. Color returns to the world. Wavering stripes of pink. The Corwin-spurning floor parts, and the Corwin-killing gulf is opened. I fall. This way, Corwin! Now! Random stands on a mountaintop and reaches for me. I extend my hand. Chapter 11. And frying pans without fires are often far between. We entangled ourselves in rows. I sat down again immediately, on the bottommost stair. I worked the metal hand loose from my shoulder. No blood there, but a promise of bruises to come. Then cast it and its arm to the ground. The light of early morning did not detract from its exquisite and menacing appearance. Ganelon and Random stood before me. You all right, Corwin? Yes, let me just catch my breath. I brought food, Random said. We could have breakfast right here. Good idea. As Random began unpacking the provisions, Ganelon nudged the arm with the toe of his boot. What the hell, he asked, is that? I shook my head. I lopped it off the ghost of Benedict, I told him. For reasons I do not understand, it was able to reach me. He stooped and picked it up, studied it. A lot lighter than I thought it would be, he observed. He raked the air with it. You could do quite a job on someone with a hand like that. I know. He worked the fingers. Maybe the real Benedict could use it. Maybe, I said. My feelings are quite mixed when it comes to offering it to him, but possibly you're right. How's the side? I prodded it gently. Not especially bad, everything considered. I'll be able to ride after breakfast, so long as we take it nice and easy. Good. Say, Corwin, while Random is getting things ready, I have a question that may be out of order, but it has been bothering me all along. Ask it. Well, let me put it this way. I am all for you, or I would not be here. I will fight for you to have your throne, no matter what. But every time talk of the succession occurs, someone gets angry and breaks it off, or the subject gets changed. Like Random did while you were up there. I suppose that it is not absolutely essential for me to know the basis of your claim to the throne, or that of any of the others, but I cannot help but being curious as to the reasons for all the friction. I sighed, then sat silent for a time. All right, I said after a while, and then I chuckled. All right. If we cannot agree on these things ourselves, I would guess that they must seem pretty confused to an outsider. Benedict is the eldest. His mother was Semnea. She bore Dad 2 other sons also, Osric and Findo. Then, how does one put these things? Faella bore Eric. After that, Dad found some defect in his marriage with Semnea and had it dissolved. Ab initio, as they would say in my old shadow, from the beginning. Ab initio, sorry. As they would say in my old shadow, from the beginning. Neat trick, that, but he was the king. Didn't that make all of them illegitimate? Well, it left their status less certain. Osric and Findo were more than a little irritated, as I understand it, but they died shortly thereafter. Benedict was either less irritated or more politic about the entire affair. He never raised a fuss, and Dad then married Faella. And that made Eric legitimate. It would have, if he had acknowledged Eric as his son. He treated him as if he were, but he never did anything formal in that regard. It involved the smoothing over process with Semnea's family, which had become a bit stronger around that time. Still, if he had treated him as his own... but later he did acknowledge Luella formally. She was born out of wedlock, but he decided to recognize her. Poor girl. All of Eric's supporters hated her for its effect on his status. Anyway, Faella was later to become my mother. I was born safely in wedlock, making me the first with a clean claim on the throne. Talk to one of the others and you may get a different line of reasoning, but those are the facts that will have to be based on. Somehow, it does not seem quite as important as it once did, though, with Eric dead and Benedict not really interested. But that is where I stand. I see, sort of, he said. Just one more thing, then. What? Who is next? That is to say, if anything were to happen to you. I shook my head. It gets even more complicated there now. Cain would have been next. With him dead, I see it as swinging over to Clarissa's brood, the Redheads. Blaze would have followed, and then Brand. Clarissa, what became of your mother? She died in childbirth. Deirdre was the child. Dad did not remarry for many years after Mother's death, and when he did, it was a red-headed wench from some far southern shadow. I never liked her. He began feeling the same way after a time and started fooling around again. They had one reconciliation after Luella's birth in Rebma, and Brand was the result. When they were finally divorced, he recognized Luella despite Clarissa. At least, that is what I think happened.
So you're not counting the ladies in the succession?
No, they are neither interested nor fit. If I were, though, Fiona would precede Blaise and Luella would follow him. After Clarissa's crowd, it would swing over to Julian, Gerard, and Random, in that order. Excuse me, count Flora before Julian. The marriage data is even more involved, but no one would dispute the final order. Let it go at that.
Gladly, he said. So now Brand gets it if you die, right?
Well, he is a self-confessed traitor, and he rubs everybody the wrong way. I do not believe the rest of them would have him, as he stands now, but I do not believe by any means he has given up.
But the alternative is Julian.
I shrugged. The fact that I do not like Julian does not make him unfit. In fact, he might even be a very effective monarch. So he knifed you for a chance to prove it, Random called out. Come on and eat. I still don't think so, I said, getting to my feet and heading for the food. First, I do not see how he could have gotten to me. Second, it would have been too damned obvious. Third, if I die in the near future, Benedict will have the real say as to the succession. Everyone knows that. He's got the seniority, he's got the wits, and he's got the power. He could simply say, for example, "The hell with all this bickering, I'm backing Gerard." And that would be it.
What if he decided to reinterpret his own status and take it himself?
Ganelon asked. We seated ourselves on the ground and took the 10 dishes Random had filled. He could have had it long before this had he wanted it, I said. There are several ways of regarding the offspring of a void marriage, and the most favorable one would be most likely in his case. Osric and Findo rushed to judgment, taking the worst view. Benedict knew better. He just waited. So, it is possible. Unlikely, though, I'd say.
Then, in the normal course of affairs, if anything happened to you, it could still be very much in the air.
Very much. But why was Cain killed? Random asked. Then, between mouthfuls, he answered his own question. So that when they got you, it would swing over to Clarissa's kids immediately. It has occurred to me that Blaise is probably still living, and he is next in line. His body was never found. My guess is this. He trumped off to Fiona during your attack, and returned to Shadow to rebuild his forces, leaving you to what he hoped would be your death at the hands of Eric. And he is finally ready to move again. So they killed Cain and tried for you. If they are really allied with the Black Road Horde, they could have arranged for another assault from that quarter. Then he could have done the same thing you did, arrive at the last hour, turn back the invaders, and move on in. And there he would be, next in line and first in force. Simple, except that you survived and Brand has been returned. If we are to believe Brand's accusation of Fiona, and I see no reason why we should not, then it follows from their original program. I nodded. Possibly, I said. I asked Brand just those things. He admitted their possibility, but he disavowed any knowledge as to whether Blaise was still living. Personally, I think he was lying. Why? It is possible that he wishes to combine revenge for his imprisonment and the attempt on his life with the removal of one impediment, save for myself, to his own succession. I think he feels that I will be expended in a scheme he is evolving to deal with the Black Road. The destruction of his own cabal and the removal of the road could make him look pretty decent, especially after all the penance he has had thrust upon him. Maybe then, he would have a chance, or thinks that he would. Then you think that Blaise is still living too? Just a feeling, I said, but yes, I do. And what is their strength, anyway? An endorsement of higher education, I said. Fiona and Brand paid attention to Dworkin while the rest of us were off indulging our assorted passions in shadow. Consequently, they seem to have obtained a better grasp of principles than we possess. They know more about shadow and what lies beyond it, more about the pattern, more about the trumps than we do. That is why Brand was able to send you his message. An interesting thought, Random mused. Do you think they might have disposed of Dworkin after they felt they had learned enough from him? It would certainly help to keep things exclusive if anything happened to Dad. That thought had not occurred to me, I said, and I wondered, could they have done something that had affected his mind? Something that left him as he was when I had last seen him? If so, were they aware that he was possibly still living somewhere? Or might they have assumed his total destruction? Yes, an interesting thought, I said. I suppose that it is possible. The sun inched its way upward, and the food restored me. No trace of Tirnanoth remained in the morning's light. My memories of it had already taken on the quality of images in a dim mirror. Ganelon fetched its only other token, the arm, and Random packed it away along with the dishes. By daylight, the first 3 steps looked less like stairs and more like jumbled rock. Random gestured with his head. "Take the same way back?" he asked. "Yes," I said, and we mounted. We had come by way of a trail that wound about Colvir to the south. It was longer but less rugged than the route across the crest. I had a humor to pamper myself so long as my side protested. Hold on, I'm going to grab a drink real fast. Coke Zero. None of the taste of Coke, but none of the calories either. Trying to cut down on the dad bod, you know. Let's see, what was I at? Ever since I hit my mid-20s a couple of years ago, I have been learning that I no longer can just eat whatever I want. So, unfortunate for me, but here we are. I guess everyone goes through a similar revelation at some point. Alright, let's see. Sorry. This break is a little bit longer than I expected it to be. I'm going to check and see how many pages we got left. About 7 pages. Maybe 8. So we bore to the right, moving single file, Random in the lead, Ganelon to the rear. The trail ran gently upward, then cut back down again. The air was cool, and it bore the aromas of verdure and moist earth. A thing quite unusual in that stark place, at that altitude. Straying air currents, I reasoned, from the forest far below. We let the horses pick their own casual pace down through the dip and up the next rise. As we neared its crest, Random's horse whinnied and began to rear. He controlled it immediately, and I glanced about but saw nothing that might have startled it. When he reached its summit, Random slowed and called back, "Take a look at that sunrise now, will you?" It would have been rather difficult to avoid doing so, though I did not remark on that fact. Random was seldom given to sentimentality over vegetation, geology, or illumination. I almost drew rein myself as I topped the rise, for the sun was a fantastic golden ball. It seemed half again its normal size, and its peculiar coloration was unlike anything I remembered having seen before. It did marvelous things to the band of ocean that had come into view above the next rise, and the tints of cloud and sky were indeed singular. I did not halt, though, for the sudden brightness was almost painful. "You're right," I called out, following him down into the next declivity. Behind me, Ganelon snorted an appreciative oath. When I had blinked away the after-effects of that display, I noticed that the vegetation was heavier than I had remembered in this little pocket in the sky. I had thought that there were several scrubby trees and some patches of lichen, but there were actually several dozen trees, larger than I recalled, and greener, with a clutch of grasses here and there and a vine or two softening the outlines of the rocks. However, since my return I had only passed this way after dark, and now that I thought of it, it was probably the source of the aromas that had come to me earlier. Passing through, it seemed that the little hollow was also wider than I recalled it. By the time we had crossed and were ascending once more, I was certain of it. "Random," I called out. "Has this place changed recently?" "Hard to say," he answered. "Eric didn't let me out much. It seems to have grown up a bit." "It seems bigger, wider." "Yes, it does. I thought that was just my imagination." When we reached the next crest, I was not dazzled again because the sun was blocked by foliage. The area ahead of us contained many more trees than the one we had just departed, and they were larger and closer together. We drew rein. "I don't remember this," he said. "Even passing through at night, it would have registered. We must have taken a wrong turn." "I don't see how. Still, we know about where we are. I'd rather go ahead than go back and start again. We should keep aware of conditions around Amber anyway." "True." He headed down toward the wood, and we followed. "It's kind of unusual at this altitude, a growth like this," he called back. "There also seems to be a lot more soil than I recall." "I believe you're right." The trail curved to the left as we entered among the trees. I could see no reason for this deviation from the direct route. We stayed with it, however, and it added to the illusion of distance. After a few moments, it swung suddenly to the right again. The prospect on cutting back was peculiar. The trees seemed even taller and were now so dense as to puzzle the eye that sought their penetration. When it turned once more, it broadened, and the way was straight for a great distance ahead. Too great, in fact. Our little dell just wasn't that wide. Random halted again. "Damn it, Corwin, this is ridiculous," he said. "You're not playing games, are you?" "I couldn't if I would," I said. "I've never been able to manipulate shadow anywhere in Colvir. There isn't supposed to be any to work with here." "And that has always been my understanding, too. Amber casts shadow, but is not of it. I don't like this at all. What do you say we turn back?" "I have a feeling we might not be able to retrace our way," I said. "There has to be a reason for this, and I want to know it." "It occurs to me this might be some sort of trap." "Even so," I said. He nodded and we rode on, down that shaded way, under trees now grown more stately. The wood was silent about us. The ground remained level, the trail straight. Half-consciously, we pushed the horses to a greater pace. About 5 minutes passed before we spoke again. Then Random said, "Corwin, this can't be shadow." "Why not?" "I've been trying to influence it, and nothing happens." "Have you tried?" "No." "Why don't you?" "All right." A rock could jut just beyond the coming tree. A morning glory twine and bell within that shrubby stand. There ought a patch of sky come clear, a wispy cloud upon it. Then let there be a fallen limb, a stare of fungus up its side, a scummed-over puddle, a frog, falling feather, drifting seed, a limb that twists just so. Another trail upon our way, fresh cut, deep marked, past the place the feather should have fallen. "No good," I said. "If it is not shadow, then what is it?" "Something else, of course." He shook his head and checked again to see that his blade was loose in its scabbard. Automatically, I did the same. Moments later, I heard Ganelon make a small clicking noise behind me. Ganelon's saddle make a small clicking noise behind me. Ganelon's sword. Sorry, I'm stupid. Ahead, the trail began to narrow, and shortly thereafter it commenced to wander. We were forced to slow our pace once again, and the trees pressed nearer with branches sweeping lower than at any time before. The trail became a path. It jogged, it curved, it gave a final twist and then quit. Random ducked a limb, then raised his hand and halted. We came up beside him. For as far as I could see ahead, there was no indication of the trail's picking up again. Looking back, I failed to locate any sign of it either. "Suggestions," he said, "are now in order. We do not know where we have been or where we are going, let alone where we are. My suggestion is the hell with curiosity. Let's get out of here the fastest way we know how.
The trumps?
Ganelon asked. Yes, what do you say, Corwin? Okay, I don't like it either, and I can't think of anything better to try. Go ahead. Who should I try for? He asked, producing his deck and uncasing it. Gerard? Yeah. He shuffled through his cards, located Gerard's, and stared at it. We stared at him. Time went on its way. I can't seem to reach him, he finally announced. Try Benedict. Okay. Repeat performance. No contact. Try Deirdre, I said, drawing forth my own deck and searching out her trump. I'll join you. We will see whether it makes a difference with two of us trying. And again, and again. Nothing, I said after a long effort. Random shook his head. Did you notice anything unusual about your trumps? He asked. Yes, but I don't know what it is. They do seem different. Mine seem to have lost the quality of coldness they once possessed, he said. I shuffled mine slowly. I ran my fingertips across them. Yes, you're right, I said. That's it. But let us try again. Say Flora. Okay. The results were the same, and with Luella and Brand. Any idea what could be wrong? Random asked. Not the slightest. They couldn't all be blocking us. They couldn't all be dead. Oh, I suppose they could, but it is highly unlikely. Something seems to have affected the trumps themselves, is what it is, and I never knew of anything that could do that. Well, they are not guaranteed 100%, Random said, according to the manufacturer. What do you know that I don't? He chuckled. You never forget the day you come of age and walk the pattern, he said. I remember it as though it were last year. When I had succeeded, all flushed with excitement, with glory, Dworkin presented me with my first set of trumps and instructed me in their use. I distinctly recall asking him whether they worked everywhere, and I remember his answer. No, he said, but that should serve you in any place you will ever be. He never much liked me, you know. But did you ask him what he meant by that? Yes, and he said, I doubt you will ever achieve a state where they will fail to serve you. Why don't you run along now? And I did. I was anxious to go play with the trumps all by myself. Achieve a state? He didn't say reach a place? No, I have a very good memory for certain things. Peculiar. Though not much help that I can see. Smacks of the metaphysical. I'd wager Brand would know. I have a feeling you're right, for all the good that does us.
We ought to do something other than discuss metaphysics, Ganelon commented. If you can't manipulate shadow, and you can't work trumps, it would seem that the next thing to do is determine where we are, and then go looking for help.
I nodded. Since we're not in Amber, I think it is safe to assume that we are in Shadow. A very special place, quite near to Amber since the changeover was not abrupt. In that we were transported without active cooperation on our part, there had to be some agency and presumably some intent behind the maneuver. If it is going to attack us, now is as good a time as any. If there is something else at once, then it is going to have to show us, because we aren't in a position to make a good guess. So you propose we do nothing? I propose we wait. I don't see any value in wandering about, losing ourselves further.
I seem to remember you once telling me that adjacent shadows tend to be somewhat congruent,
Ganelon said. Yes, I probably did. So what?
Then, if we are as near to Amber as you suppose, we need but ride toward the rising sun and come to a spot that parallels the city itself.
It's not quite that simple. But supposing it were, what good would it do us?
Perhaps the trumps would function again at the point of maximum congruity.
Random looked at Ganelon, looked at me. That may be worth trying, he said. What have we got to lose? Whatever small orientation we still possess, I said. Look, it is not a bad idea. If nothing develops here, we will try it. However, looking back, it seems that the road behind us closes in direct proportion to the distance we advance. We are not simply moving in space. Under these circumstances, I am loath to wander until I am satisfied that we have no other option. If someone desires our presence at a particular location, it is up to him now to phrase the invitation a little more legibly. We wait. They both nodded. Random began to dismount, then froze, one foot in the stirrup and one on the ground. After all these years, he said, and I never really believed it. What is it? I whispered. The option, he said, and he mounted again. He persuaded his horse to move very slowly forward. I followed, and a moment later I glimpsed it. White as I had seen it in the grove, standing half hidden amid a clump of ferns, the unicorn. It turned as we moved, and seconds later flashed ahead to stand partly concealed once more by the trunks of several trees.
I see it, Ganelon whispered. To think there really is such a beast. Your family's emblem, isn't it?
Yes.
A good sign, I'd say.
I did not answer, but followed, keeping it in sight. That it was meant to be followed, I did not doubt. It had a way of remaining partly concealed the entire while, looking out from behind something, passing from cover to cover, moving with an incredible swiftness when it did move, avoiding open areas, favoring glade and shade. We followed, deeper and deeper into the wood which had given up all semblance of anything to be found on Colvier's slopes. It resembled Arden now, more than anything else near Amber, as the ground was relatively level and the trees grew more and more stately. An hour had passed, I'd guessed, and another had followed it before we came to a small clear stream and the unicorn turned and headed up it. As we rode along the bank, Random commented, "This is starting to look sort of familiar." "Yes," I said, "but only sort of, and I can't quite say why." "Nor I." We entered upon a slope shortly thereafter, and it grew steeper before very long. The going became more difficult for the horses, but the unicorn adjusted its pace to accommodate them. The ground became rockier, the trees smaller. The stream curved in its splashing course. I lost track of its twists and turns, but we were finally nearing the top of the small mount up which we'd been traveling. We achieved a level area and continued along it toward the wood from which the stream issued. At this point I caught an oblique view. Ahead and to the right, through a place where the land fell away, of an icy blue sea, quite far below us.
"We're pretty high up," Ganelon said. "It seemed like a lowland, but—"
"The Grove of the Unicorn," Random interrupted. "That's what it looks like, see?" Nor was he incorrect. Ahead lay an area strewn with boulders. Amid them, as spring uttered the stream we followed. This place was larger and more lush, its situation incorrect in terms of my internal compass, yet the similarity had to be more than coincidental. The unicorn mounted the rock nearest the spring, looked at us, and then turned away. It might have been staring down at the ocean. Then, as we continued, the grove, the unicorn, the trees about us, the stream beside us took on an unusual clarity, all as though each were radiating some special illumination, causing it to quiver with the intensity of its color while at the same time wavering, slightly, just at the edges of perception. This produced in me an incipient feeling like the beginning of the emotional accompaniment to the Hell Ride. Then, with each stride of my mount, something went out of the world about us. An adjustment in the relationships of objects suddenly occurred, eroding my sense of depth, destroying perspective, rearranging the display of articles within my field of vision, so that everything presented its entire outer surface without simultaneously appearing to occupy an increased area. Angles predominated, and relative sizes seemed suddenly ridiculous. Random's horse reared and neighed, massive, apocalyptic, instantly recalling Guernica to my mind. And to my distress, I saw that we ourselves had not been untouched by the phenomenon, but that Random, struggling with his mount, and Ganelon, still managing to control Firedrake, had, like everything else, been transfigured by this cubist dream of space. But Star was a veteran of many a hell ride. Firedrake also had been through a lot. We clung to them and felt the movements that we could not accurately gauge. And Random succeeded, at last, in imposing his will upon his mount, though the prospect continued to alter as we advanced. Light values shifted next. The sky grew black, not as night, but like a flat, non-reflecting surface. So did certain vacant areas between objects. The only light left in the world seemed to originate from things themselves, and all of it was gradually bleached. Various intensities of white emerged from the planes of existence, and brightest of all, immense, awful, the unicorn suddenly reared, pawing at the air, filling perhaps 90% of creation with what became a slow-motion gesture I feared would annihilate us if we advanced another pace. And then there was only the light. Then absolute stillness. Then the light was gone and there was nothing, not even blackness, a gap in existence, which might have lasted an instant or an eternity. Then the blackness returned and the light. Only they were reversed. Light filled the interstices, outlining voids that must be objects. The first sound that I heard was the rushing of water, and I knew somehow that we were halted beside the spring. The first thing that I felt was stars quivering, and then I smelled the sea. Then the pattern came into view, or a distorted negative of it. I leaned forward and more light leaked around the edges of things. I leaned back. It went away. Forward again, this time farther than before. The light spread, introduced various shades of gray into the scheme of things. With my knees, then, gently, I suggested that star advance. With each pace, something returned to the world. Surfaces, textures, colors. Behind me, I heard the others begin to follow. Below me, the pattern surrendered nothing of its mystery, but it acquired a context which, by degrees, found its place within the larger reshaping of the world around us. Continuing downhill, a sense of depth re-emerged. The sea, now plainly visible off to the right, underwent a possibly purely optical separation from the sky, with which it seemed momentarily to have been joined in some sort of mirror of the waters above and waters below. Unsettling upon reflection, but unnoted while in effect. We were heading down a steep, rocky incline, which seemed to have taken its beginning at the rear of the grove to which the unicorn had led us. Perhaps 100 meters below us was a perfectly level area which appeared to be solid, unfractured rock, roughly oval in shape, a couple of 100 meters along its major axis. The slope down which we rode swung off to the left and returned, describing a vast arc, a parenthesis, half-cupping the smooth shelf. Beyond its rightward jutting there was nothing. That is to say, the land fell away in a steep descent toward that peculiar sea. And continuing, all three dimensions seemed to reassert themselves once more. The sun was that great orb of molten gold we had seen earlier. The sky was a deeper blue than that of amber, and there were no clouds in it. That sea was a matching blue, unspecked by sail or island. I saw no birds, and I heard no sounds other than our own. An enormous silence lay upon this place, this day. In the bowl of my suddenly clear vision, the pattern at last achieved its disposition upon the surface below. I thought at first that it was inscribed in the rock, but as we drew nearer I saw that it was contained within it. Gold-pink swirls, like veining in an exotic marble, natural seeming despite the obvious purpose to the design. I drew rein and the others came up beside me, Random to my right and Ganelon to my left. We regarded it in silence for a long while. A dark, rough-edged smudge had obliterated an area of the section immediately beneath us, running from its outer rim to the center. "You know," Random finally said, it is as if someone had shaved the top off Colvir, cutting at about the level of the dungeons." "Yes," I said. "Then, looking for congruence, that would be about where our own pattern lies." "Yes," I said again. "And that blotted area is to the south, from whence comes the Black Road." I nodded slowly as the understanding arrived and forged itself into a certainty. "What does it mean?" he asked. "It seems to correspond to the true state of affairs, but beyond that I do not understand its significance. Why have we been brought down here and shown this thing?" "It does not correspond to the true state of affairs," I said. "It is the true state of affairs. Ganelon turned toward us.
On that Shadow Earth we visited, where you had spent so many years, I heard a poem about two roads that diverged in a wood," he said. "It ends, 'I took the one less traveled by,' and that has made all the difference. When I heard it, I thought of something you once said. All roads lead to Amber. And I wondered then, as I do now, at the difference the choice may make, despite the end's apparent inevitability to those of your blood."
"You know?" I asked. "You understand?"
"I think so."
He nodded, and then pointed.
"That is the real Amber down there, isn't it?"
"Yes," I said. "Yes, it is." And that is the end of Sign of the Unicorn. And also the end of this episode, because I'll see you guys next time. Oh, man. I remember my first time reading Sign of the Unicorn, whenever that reveal happened. Sign of the Unicorn is the book that really adds a lot of depth to the series, just very suddenly. You have the sudden sort of jumbling, because it feels like you start to piece things together and understand everything in the first couple of books. But then whenever Sign of the Unicorn goes apeshit and Brand reveals all of his stuff with his cabal, and you learn about the true pattern, the primal pattern, it really like throws you for a curveball, because it suddenly expands things in a way that like I was not expecting on my first read. And I remember I was very eager to read forward. Oh, sorry, I'm stretching. Ugh. So, well, you guys won't have to wait that long, but it'll be like a day. But yeah, I remember I was like super involved at this point. I was like 100% like, it had become like the page turner for me. I was like, shit, I gotta keep going. So, I mean, luckily I was reading the volume collection that I got from my dad, which was like volume 1 and 2 of the Chronicles of Amber, which had all the books of the Corwin cycle in it. And then he had the Merlin cycle and individual books, which I have all the books on my bookshelf. But I've been reading out of the omnibus version, or the Great Book of Amber, just because it's easier. But yeah, I gotta say, I mean, I keep saying this all the time, but the series really does just get better as it goes on. It introduces more significant plots and has just some fun twists and stuff. Not necessarily twists, but fun like revelations, I'd say. Anyhow, I'll probably stop that off here and get to uploading this video, since, you know, gotta meet that daily quota.